Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we return to early 1982 for the newspaper strips, unfortunately, with another relatively throwaway story here. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. The story we're looking at this time is entitled Traitor's Gambit. It ran from January 4th through March 7th of 1982. Now, if you are someone who's one of those hardcore collectors, I said I would show you each time, you can find this in Volume 2, now, it's the first story of Volume 2, of that Russ Cochran newspaper strip collection where everything is essentially reprinted in an unmolested form. Runs all the way up to page 199. Now you might be thinking, I'm sorry, 199? That sure doesn't look like it's 200 pages into the book. The volumes in this set are numbered consecutively. So as you finish one volume, it goes to the next volume, and the page numbering picks up where the other one left off. Don't freak out about that here. So the first little chunk of this one is going to be Traitor's Gambit. We then also, of course, nowadays can find these in the pages of classic Star Wars. And here we have a situation where not only do we have stories that are essentially being split up in the middle of individual comic book issues, but this story is split up in the midst of two trade paperbacks of that series as well. We start out with issue number 7. This picks up where Deadly Reunion left off. So we're starting this out with about page 15. They went to hyperspace at the end of Deadly Reunion. Now we pick up here at the beginning of page 15 for Traitor's Gambit. However, this then ends in issue number 8. And number 8 takes us up again to about page 15, where we finish up with Han and Leia talking, and then the very next page launches off the beginning of the next story. Now, what makes that so unusual is that issue number 7 is found in trade paperback number 1 of classic Star Wars, In Deadly Pursuit. Issue number 8 is the first issue of The Rebel Storm. So we actually have something here where it's not only a cliffhanger between this issue and this one, it's a cliffhanger between the two trade paperbacks. And again, this is mainly because what we're dealing with here is them taking the newspaper strips and re-editing them, coloring them and everything, and essentially running them as much as they can in one issue of the series and then just stopping and picking up where the next one can come in. It's nothing about individual story points, big cliffhangers, or anything like that. It's basically designed around how many panels of this new version of the newspaper strips can we fit into one comic that's about 20, 22, 24 pages each time around. Now, before I move on, I should note here there is something different, to its credit, for issue number 8 that is a new trend that's going to be happening for the rest of this series, and that does also happen back in the pages of classic Star Wars, The Early Adventures, which we've already looked at because it reprints earlier ones by Russ Manning, though it was published later by Dark Horse Comics. They're sort of getting their feet under them at this point. Issue number 8, I pointed out when we did Deadly Reunion how issue number 7 and such had just the regular opening where it went straight into the action here. You really didn't get a lot of background information. Now, each of these issues is going to start with what has come before, its own little Star Wars crawl. Unfortunately, in some of the issues, it's really, really hard to read that yellow text on the black background because it looks like somebody didn't hit the bold button, as the case may be. So they are starting to at least give you some background here so you're not jumping in blind. These are stories that make a lot more sense if you read them as the trade paperbacks or in the original strips or in a row, because individually, month to month, I would imagine this being very difficult to have been able to follow back when Dark Horse was first publishing them. Now, the idea here is pretty straightforward. Luke and Han and Leia and the droids and Chewbacca and all them, they have just finished up their adventures in Deadly Reunion. They had reunited on Cabal back at the beginning of that story after being separated previously, thanks to Luke going on the Serpent Master's mission. And now they're trying to go back to Yavin 4, only Yavin 4 is now under bombardment by Imperial forces. They've been blockading the Yavin system pretty loosely because ships keep getting in and out, but what they're trying to do essentially now is to hit the rebel stronghold itself, to drive them out so they can destroy them, to test their defenses and whatnot. And because of that, they basically turn away any rebel ships that are coming back to Yavin 4 and say, don't come in because there's an assault going on. So they have to go somewhere else. They wind up going to Aquarius. Turns out that there's a rebel group on Aquarius whose leader and a few others were on Cabal when they were attacked back in Deadly Reunion, the previous story arc of the newspaper strips, and Leia trusts the leader of this rebel band. Truth is, there's actually a traitor in their midst. They think, hence Traitor's Gambit, they think that there might be a traitor in this group could be any other group. It could be in this group because the Empire somehow found out about that meeting on Cabal. That's why the assault happened back in Deadly Reunion at the beginning. So obviously there's a traitor somewhere. They don't just drop that. It's set up for this. So they go to Aquarius and they wind up meeting the leader of the rebel faction only to find out that this leader is someone that Han already knows. It's a woman by the name of Silverfire. Yes, that's the name she goes by, Silverfire. And Silverfire has a second in command, a man by the name of Kraken, like the sea creature almost, K-R-A-A-K-E-N, not Kraken like K-R or C-R-A-K-E-N like General Kraken, not that character, no Pash Kraken, no connection to that family, just a similar sounding name but spelled differently here. They are, what is it, homophones. Suffice to say, they wind up there, and Han thinks that maybe Silverfire is the traitor, that they shouldn't trust Silverfire. There's no way she's changed her ways and is now essentially, instead of being a privateer or a scoundrel like Han, she really is with the rebels. Although Han is, obviously they can change their ways. So Han and Luke are talking, and Han makes it a point of making sure they talk out loud about the fact that R2-D2 still has the data about that Imperial weapon, right? The Executor still has that data from way back in the earlier storyline, earlier in the Williamson-Goodwin run of these. And basically, he's setting a trap. He figures that somebody is listening, so he makes sure it's said out loud, tries to set a trap for whoever it is that's the traitor, only Luke and Han and Chewie all get sort of taken out of the picture when they go out on a hunt, taking out a demon squid. And while there's a lot of, mayhem that happens there, Luke almost getting killed, that how are they going to take out the demon squid, etc., etc. Chewie goes into the water to save the day and this kind of stuff. Basically, it's all a ruse. But Han doesn't realize it's a ruse. He actually put things in danger. Turns out, though, that while he was doing his ruse, so was Leia. Because even as they are fighting the demon squid out there, and Kraken is stealing the data from R2-D2, having zapped C-3PO to stop any chance of being reported by C-3PO, Leia was lying in wait. And she's able to get the jump on Kraken, and it turns out she wasn't even, using the real data as the trap. Unlike Han, she didn't put the real data at risk, she put a duplicate at risk to basically just have as bait to draw Kraken or whoever the traitor was out. As Leia says, relax, Han, I needed your scheming to keep him from catching on to mine. So the traitor is stopped, they know why it was they were attacked on Cabal, and our heroes are ready again to try to return to Yavin 4. A fairly straightforward story, but very action-packed, a lot of scheming, a lot of, who's the traitor type stuff, but really you only meet a couple of the members of this particular rebel group, Silverfire and Kraken, at least in any detail, so you assume it's got to be probably one of them, or somebody who's maybe a droid which is around them all the time, or something like that. It had to be somehow connected to one of those two, so it's not a big shock when you figure out who it is, but a decent little tale. Again, nothing that has great impact on anything else, but a fun little adventure type story. It has a little bit more action, a little more intrigue, and the characterization is a little deeper than we got in Deadly Reunion, though not all that deep this time around. So that begs the question, as always, this story, Traitor's Gambit, is it an essential read? Again, I would say no. We don't tend to see Silverfire or Kraken again in the future. I mean, it's just one of these stories that takes place, it gives us some action in the newspaper strips, it's not meant to fit in with anything else, it's just meant to fit in with itself, and it's just another detour on our hero's way back to Yavin 4. You could skip it, just pick up with them on Yavin 4, no big deal whatsoever. So, yeah, take it or leave it, is my recommendation. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.